What happens when a CEO goes undercover as a rookie chef and overhears two senior cooks plotting to walk out because of abusive management? Victor Langston stood in the back alley of the restaurant, dressed in a loose-fitting black t-shirt, worn jeans, and a faded baseball cap pulled low enough to shadow his face. He glanced at the back door of Store 3, one of the 7 locations he'd built from scratch over the last 12 years, then looked down at his hands. A little too clean. He rubbed some flour onto them from the paper bag he'd brought along. Couldn't afford to look out of place. He took a slow breath. This wasn't his first time going undercover, but it never got easier, especially now. Victor had received a string of vague complaints about Store 3 in the past few months: low employee morale, high turnover, slower service. But nothing specific. Reports from the district manager, Tom, had painted a decent picture. Just growing pains, he'd said. But Victor had learned one thing early in business: never trust the surface. So he created the perfect cover. Victor Langston was now Rick, a former line cook trying to start over after a 2-year break. He had a fake resume, a slightly grown-out beard, and a new number on file. Most of the staff at this location had never met him, and it was a big enough chain that they wouldn't recognize him by face. Corporate rarely visited kitchens anyway. That's how he'd kept his presence anonymous. He stepped inside, heart thumping in his chest. "Hey, you the new guy?" asked a stout man with a deep voice and a stained apron. "Yeah, Rick," Victor said, offering a short nod. "Name's Leo. I'm the head cook. You'll be shadowing under Carmen today. Try not to slow her down." Victor was tossed a black apron and led to the prep station. The kitchen was buzzing, but it didn't feel warm. The energy was off. People moved fast, but no one smiled. Nobody joked. Just orders barked, pans clanged, and stress clung to the air like smoke. Carmen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with quick hands and a tired face, barely glanced at Victor. "Peel those potatoes. Don't cut 'em yet. I'll show you the size we use." "Got it." They worked side by side for 10 minutes in silence. "You new to kitchens?" she asked suddenly, not looking up. "Been in and out." "Did some work up north, took some time off? Figured I'd get back into it." "Humph. Well, keep your head down. Don't give Leo or Bridget a reason to snap." Victor paused. "Bridget? Manager. You'll see." He didn't push, just kept peeling. By mid-morning, he already saw signs something was off. Leo shouted at a young line cook for oversalting a sauce loud enough for the whole kitchen to freeze. Bridget stormed in twice, snapping orders, ignoring greetings, and saying things like, "If you can't handle this, there's the door." Victor quietly watched it all. People flinched when Bridget walked by. Carmen muttered, "Here we go again," under her breath each time she entered. Around lunchtime, Victor was wiping down a prep board when he heard 2 voices coming from the walk-in fridge. He stepped closer, pretending to check the meat inventory, and caught the tail end of a sentence. "Can't take another week of this crap, man. I'm serious." It was Leo. "You say that every month," came Carmen's voice. "This time I mean it. I've got a buddy in Austin. Said he could get us on at his restaurant. Pays better. No Bridget breathing down our necks. I'm done. She talks to me like I'm trash. I've been here 6 years. 6. Victor stayed quiet, his ears burning. She called me useless in front of a server yesterday. I almost walked then, Carmen replied. Her voice cracked slightly. Leo sighed. We give 2 weeks. After that, she'll see what it's like without us. Victor stepped back, pretending to grab a container of lettuce. His hands were shaking. He left the fridge and went back to the prep line. His mind raced. Leo and Carmen weren't just staff, they were the backbone of this store. And they were ready to walk because of the manager. And now he'd seen it for himself. Bridget didn't lead. She ruled. With fear. Later that afternoon, as he was dicing onions, Bridget came up behind him. You're slow, she said sharply. Pick up the pace or go home. Victor turned slightly, keeping his voice calm. First day, just trying to get the cuts right. You're not here to learn. You're here to work. This isn't culinary school. He nodded, jaw tight. Leo, she barked. Show the rookie how it's done. Leo walked over, eyes tired. He didn't say anything. Just took the knife and diced 2 onions in 30 seconds. See? Learn something? Bridget snapped, then walked off. Victor met Leo's eyes. Leo gave a tired shrug and walked away. That night, Victor sat in his car in the back lot, staring at the steering wheel. He'd worked too hard to build a company that made people feel this small. He thought of Carmen's cracked voice, Leo's tired shrug, the silence in the kitchen. He opened his phone and pulled up the schedule. Tomorrow, Bridget had the day off. Perfect. He was going to spend the whole day working next to Leo and Carmen. No manager breathing down their necks, just co-workers. He wanted to see who they really were without the fear. Victor arrived the next morning before sunrise, slipping through the back as the kitchen lights flickered on. The air was calmer without Bridget's voice slicing through it. The clatter of pans and the low hum of prep work filled the space instead. He washed his hands, tied his apron, and slid into a rhythm alongside Carmen, who was already slicing green peppers in methodical rows. "You show up early or just don't sleep?" she asked, not looking up.
"Didn't want to start off behind today." She paused to adjust her bandana. "Most new hires don't even survive week 1. You keep showing up, you're already ahead of the curve." He grabbed a cutting board and started prepping onions. A younger cook named Maya walked in behind them, earbuds dangling around her neck. She gave a short nod, then quietly began setting up her station. "She's been here 2 months," Carmen said under her breath. "Barely talks. Keeps her head down. Smart girl. You train her." "Leo did most of it. I just kept her from quitting." Victor glanced toward Maya. She moved with quiet precision, eyes locked on her hands. He turned back to his onions. Leo walked in a few minutes later, carrying a travel mug and a small notebook. He looked less tense than the day before, though his shoulders still held a cautious slope. "Morning," he called out to no one in particular. Carmen raised a hand. "You're early. Didn't sleep much. Figured I'd prep the chicken so we're not scrambling later." Victor nudged the bucket of onions toward Maya. "Want to take these?" She nodded, took the container without a word, and slid it across to her station. "Where's Bridget?" Leo asked, glancing around. "Off today," Carmen replied. Leo exhaled through his nose. "Feels like we just got upgraded to first class." Carmen let out a dry chuckle. "Don't jinx it." The pace picked up as the day rolled forward. Tickets came in steadily. Without Bridget around, the kitchen moved quickly, but something else was different. People spoke more. Carmen cracked jokes with a passing server. Leo started humming between orders. Even Maya began asking questions about seasoning blends. Victor moved from station to station, helping wherever needed. He kept his head down, but he was listening, always listening. During a lull in the late morning rush, Leo leaned against the counter, wiping sweat from his brow. "Rick," he said, "you ever work in a place where things actually ran smooth?" Victor turned from the fryer. "Couple times." "Why?" Leo tapped the notebook he'd brought in. "I've been keeping track of stuff. Inventory that doesn't make sense, orders being altered after they're entered, schedules changing last minute. I'm not paranoid, but something's off." Victor narrowed his eyes. "You think someone's messing with the system?" "I don't know," Leo said. "But last week we were short 3 trays of salmon. Bridget said it was a supplier issue, but the invoice said it was delivered." "You ever bring it up to corporate?" Leo scoffed. "You think they'd listen to me? I'm still waiting for a reply from the email I sent in March." Victor kept his expression neutral. "You talked to Tom about it?" "Twice. Both times he said he'd look into it. Then nothing. Bridget acts like she runs the whole chain." Carmen joined them, wiping her hands on a towel. "It's not just food. Last week I clocked out at the end of my shift and saw my hours were adjusted the next day. Lost 2 hours. When I asked Bridget, she said it was a system error. But it keeps happening." Victor's stomach turned. "Anyone else notice that?" "Yeah," Carmen said carefully. "But no one wants to speak up. You speak up, your shifts get cut." Maya glanced over from her station. "It happened to me too. I just assumed it was my mistake." Leo looked at her. "It wasn't." The room fell quiet for a moment. Victor took a breath, then turned back to the fryer. The second lunch wave hit harder than expected. A private party had been added to the books without warning, and the kitchen scrambled to keep up. Victor noticed Carmen checking the ticket screen twice. It was missing several modifiers. One plate came back undercooked, another was sent out without the allergy notice tagged. Who's been inputting these? Carmen muttered, scanning the screen. Leo checked the terminal. Looks like Bridget entered the table this morning before she left. No wonder it's a mess. Victor stepped in to help plate the last few dishes. As they pushed through the final wave, he caught Maya rubbing her wrist near the heat lamp. He walked over. You all right? She nodded. Just burned myself earlier. It's fine. He pulled a small bottle of ointment from the first aid drawer and handed it to her. You should say something when that happens. She hesitated. Last time I tried, Bridget told me to stop being dramatic. Leo overheard and shook his head. We used to have a safety log. Haven't seen it in weeks. Probably lost like everything else. By the time the dinner shift started, the kitchen was running on fumes. Carmen had been on her feet since 5 in the morning, and Leo's voice was hoarse from shouting over the line. But despite the exhaustion, there was something steady about the team. They covered for each other, shared water bottles, passed notes about orders. Victor watched it all. It wasn't laziness or incompetence that slowed the store down. It was fear, distrust. People had adapted by shrinking their expectations. They weren't broken, they were surviving. Near the end of his shift, Victor stepped outside to take out trash. As he rounded the corner, he spotted Tom's car pulling into the lot. The district manager stepped out, straightening his blazer and checking his watch. Victor paused, then walked back inside without saying anything. A few minutes later, Tom entered through the front and made his way toward the kitchen. Look alive, Carmen said under her breath. Tom strode into the back like he owned it. Evening, everyone. Just checking in. Heard the day went well? No one responded. He glanced around, then spotted Victor. You the new guy? Victor nodded. Yeah. Rick. Good. We need more folks who show up and do the job. Some people around here think they're above it. He looked directly at Leo. Leo didn't react, just kept wiping down his station. Tom clapped his hands once. Keep it tight. I'll be back end of week. He spun on his heels and walked out. Victor's jaw tightened. Carmen turned to him. That's the guy who's supposed to keep Bridget in check. Leo spoke softly. He's the reason she thinks she can do whatever she wants. Victor didn't answer. He clocked out, changed quickly, and walked to his car. Tomorrow, he wasn't coming in as Rick anymore. He'd seen enough. And he was done watching from the sidelines. Victor returned to the restaurant just before the lunch rush, wearing a navy button-down, pressed slacks, and the kind of quiet confidence that came with building something from the ground up. This time he entered through the front, not the alley, and walked past confused glances from servers who recognized him only vaguely. Most had never seen the founder in person. He bypassed the host stand and moved straight for the kitchen. The moment he stepped through the swinging doors, the noise dipped. Leo looked up from the grill, his brow furrowed. Carmen stood frozen with a sauce ladle mid-air. Maya stopped in the middle of garnishing a plate. Victor didn't wait. I'm not Rick, he said. My name's Victor Langston. I'm the owner of this restaurant. And the company. No one moved. I've spent the last 3 days working beside you because I needed to see this place for myself. Leo blinked. What? Victor stepped forward. I watched you run this kitchen while being undermined at every turn. Carmen, I watched you carry the morning shift without a word of complaint. Maya, I saw what happened to your hours. I saw the burn. I saw all of it. Carmen lowered the ladle to the counter and wiped her hands slowly on her apron. You're the owner? She asked, her tone flat. You've been pretending? I had to, Victor replied. I've been getting filtered reports. I didn't know what was really happening here. But I do now. The kitchen clock ticked overhead. No one spoke. Leo finally broke the silence. What are you going to do? Victor looked at him. Where's Bridget? Scheduled to open tomorrow. Good, Victor said. Because I'll be here waiting. He turned to Carmen. I'd like to speak to you and Leo after service. Privately. She gave a short nod. Leo didn't respond. Victor walked out without another word. He needed a place to think. He took a seat at an empty corner booth in the dining area and pulled out his phone. The dining room was beginning to fill and the hum of conversation dulled the tension he'd just left behind. He opened the scheduling dashboard, then the payroll logs. Carmen's hours had been altered 4 times in the last 6 weeks. Leo's overtime had been manually removed. Maya's entry-level pay hadn't changed since her hiring, despite the review she was supposed to receive after 30 days. Her 30 days had passed 2 weeks ago. He kept scrolling.
The same patterns repeated across other names. Schedules were changed without notice. Breaks weren't being recorded. Food costs were listed higher than what was being delivered. The deeper he looked, the clearer it became Bridget had free rein, and Tom had either ignored it or helped cover it. After the lunch rush, Leo and Carmen met him in the alley behind the restaurant. Carmen lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. Leo leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Victor didn't waste time. "I want to know how long this has been going on." Carmen took a drag, then tapped ash onto the ground. "She took over this location 9 months ago. Things were fine the first few weeks. Then she started snapping at servers, cutting hours, rewriting orders. Small stuff at first. Then it got worse." Leo pushed off the wall. "We tried to speak up. Tom always brushed it off.
Said Bridget was getting results and that we needed to adapt. Did she ever threaten you directly?" Carmen nodded. "She told me I could be replaced in a week. Said if I didn't like the way she ran things, I could file a complaint. But she'd make sure my attitude followed me to my next job." Victor's jaw tightened. Leo added, "She's smart. Never yells when customers are around. But the second the doors close? Whole different person." Victor looked between them. "And you were going to leave?" Carmen exhaled smoke. "We didn't want to. But we couldn't keep going like this." Victor didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed. "Tom," he said when the line picked up. "I need you at store 3. Now. Don't ask questions. Just get here." He hung up before Tom could respond. The next morning, Victor arrived before opening and waited in the manager's office. He sat in Bridget's chair, hands folded on the desk. He'd already reviewed the footage. She'd been logging into the scheduling system from her phone and computer, making undocumented changes. The security cameras caught her logging into payroll at odd hours. The login trail was unmistakable. At 7:45, Bridget walked in through the back. She stopped cold when she saw Victor in her chair. "Can I help you?" Victor stood. "Good morning, Bridget. I'm Victor Langston. I own this company." She blinked. "Right? I've seen your photo in the training packet. What brings you here?" "I've been watching this store for a few days. I worked here undercover." Her expression changed. Not panic, not confusion, just calculation. "I see. And what did you find?" "I found a hostile work environment. I found falsified payroll. I found manipulated schedules, missing inventory, and employee intimidation." She didn't flinch. "That's a strong accusation. I have records. I have footage. I have first-hand accounts. You've been altering hours, withholding raises, and cutting corners to make numbers look good. You've been abusing your authority." Bridget crossed her arms. "This store has been hitting its targets. Exceeding them, in fact. If you want to fire me for being efficient, go ahead." Victor stepped closer. "Efficiency doesn't mean anything if it's built on fear. You've created a toxic culture. And it ends today." The door opened behind her. Tom walked in, eyes scanning the room. "Victor, what's going on?" Victor turned. "You're next." Tom froze. "I trusted you to oversee these stores. Instead, you ignored warnings, dismissed complaints, and enabled this behavior. Either you were incompetent or complicit. Neither is acceptable." Tom began to speak, but Victor cut him off. "Save it. I'm terminating your contract. Effective immediately." Tom's face flushed. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious." Bridget opened her mouth, but Victor raised a hand. "You're done too. Security will escort you both out in 5 minutes." She glared. "You're making a mistake." Victor leaned in. "No, I'm correcting one." Bridget and Tom left without another word. Victor remained in the office, silent for a moment. Then he walked into the kitchen. Carmen stood near the back, arms crossed. Leo was prepping fresh herbs. Maya was setting up her station. Victor waited until they looked up. "They're gone." No one responded at first. Then Leo set down his knife. "What now?" Victor nodded. "Now we rebuild." He stepped aside as the new interim manager walked in, a woman named Denise who had run Store 5 for 3 years without a single staff complaint. She stepped forward and introduced herself with a quiet, steady voice. Victor turned back to the team. "I'm not here to give speeches. I'm here to listen, and to make this place what it should have been all along." He glanced at Maya.
Your pay will be corrected today, and you'll receive back pay for the hours that were adjusted. Then to Carmen. You're being promoted to lead kitchen trainer.
You'll be helping standardize onboarding across every location. And finally, Leo, you'll be offered the operations supervisor role for this region. If you want it. Leo stared at him, stunned. Victor nodded once. No pressure. But you've earned it. No one said much. But the silence felt different now. When Victor left that afternoon, the kitchen was still busy. Still loud. But the tension had shifted. People looked each other in the eye again. Orders moved faster. Laughter returned in small bursts. Victor stepped outside into the sunlight. He wasn't proud of what he'd found.
But he was proud of what came next. 2 weeks after the shakeup, Victor returned to Store 3 without calling ahead. This time, he walked through the front door not to investigate, but to observe what was becoming of the place now that the weight had shifted. The dining room was half full, tables turning steadily. He took a seat near the window and watched the floor. Servers moved without hesitation. One of them laughed with a guest while topping off water. The tension that had once clung to the air like grease was gone.
A few minutes passed before Maya appeared, hair tied back, apron crisp. Didn't expect to see you out here. I figured I owed the food a proper sit-down, Victor said. She set down a menu. We're trying a new special. Denise asked if I wanted to design a lunch plate. It's mine on the cover. He tapped the photo. That's yours. She nodded once, barely hiding the pride behind her posture. Grilled trout with lemon herb risotto. I've been testing it in the back for 3 days. Everyone signed off on it yesterday. He handed the menu back. Then I'll have that.
And black coffee. I'll let Carmen know. As she turned, Victor noticed something subtle. Her gait had changed. It was steadier, less guarded. Like someone who'd finally stopped watching over her shoulder. While he waited, he scanned the room. There were new faces at 2 of the station's likely fresh hires. But they weren't scrambling or lost. The flow was tight. Someone had trained them well. A few minutes later, Carmen stepped out from the kitchen holding a small tray. She approached the table without ceremony, set the plate down in front of him, and crossed her arms. She asked if she could design something. I said sure. Honestly, I thought it'd be a mess. But she's got a clean touch. Doesn't overload the plate. Knows when to stop. Victor took one bite and nodded slowly. It's balanced. Bright. Not overthought. She listens, Carmen added. Some people just cook. She watches first. Then moves. Victor gestured to the seat across from him. You have a minute? She glanced over her shoulder, then sat. I've been thinking a lot about what's next for this location, he said. Operationally, it's back on track.
A culture doesn't fix itself on paper. Carmen leaned forward. You thinking about bringing in someone to lead it? I already did. Her brow furrowed. You, Victor said. She blinked. Me? You've got the respect of the kitchen. You've earned it without asking for it. And people follow how you move. I want you to take over as kitchen director for the store. Carmen didn't speak right away. Her fingers touched the edge of the table, unsure. I've never held a title in my life. You've been doing the work without one. She looked toward the kitchen, then back at him.
I'll need someone to cover lead cook. I've already offered it to Maya. She accepted this morning. Carmen ran a hand through her hair. She's still green. And she's learning faster than most. You said it yourself, she watches first. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. All right, I'll take it. But I'm not changing how I work. I'm not asking you to. Their conversation was cut short when Leo stepped out from the back hallway. A clipboard under one arm, phone to his ear. He spotted Victor and walked over as he ended the call. Just got off with the crew in Pasadena, Leo said. They're asking for a copy of the new scheduling model we're using. Words spreading faster than I expected. Victor stood and shook his hand. I saw the numbers. Labor costs stabilized without cutting hours. Productivity's up. Morale too. Leo nodded. It's basic stuff. Just took someone not afraid to listen. Victor glanced down at the clipboard. Notes, times, staffing patterns all in Leo's handwriting. Still thinking about that operations role? Leo scratched the back of his neck. Honestly, I wasn't sure.
I've never run anything outside a kitchen. But this last week, I've been helping the new manager at Store 6 sort out her prep flow. Turns out I kind of like solving problems from the outside. Victor smiled. It suits you. Leo tilted the clipboard toward Carmen. She's the one who kept this place standing. I just patched the holes. She waved a hand dismissively. We all did what we had to. Victor nodded toward the kitchen. I've got a regional meeting next month. I want both of you there. Not just to sit in, you'll be presenting. Leo raised an eyebrow. About what? About how you took a broken kitchen and made it work without fear. I want the rest of the region to see what it looks like when leadership actually leads. Carmen stood. You want me to talk to a room full of managers? I want you to show them what earned respect looks like. Most of them don't know. Leo grinned. Well, that'll be something. Carmen grabbed the empty plate and turned to leave. Hey, Victor, she said, pausing. Yeah? You coming back undercover again? He chuckled. Not if I can help it. She disappeared through the doors. Leo looked after her. She'll never admit it, but I think that meant something. Victor watched the kitchen doors swing shut. It meant everything. Outside, the sidewalk was starting to fill with midday traffic. Victor walked to the corner and stood for a moment, taking in the storefront. The signage was clean again. Someone had repainted the window trim. The little things that signaled pride had returned. A delivery truck pulled up and parked near the side entrance. The driver hopped out and waved to a prep cook standing by the service door. They exchanged a brief laugh before unloading crates of produce. Victor checked his watch. He had other stores to visit, other places that might be hiding the same cracks under polished numbers. But he wouldn't be going in blind anymore. He crossed the street and got into his car. Before starting the engine, he made a note in his phone, mandatory quarterly check-ins. CEO must visit each location. No exceptions. He didn't need another reminder of what silence allowed. He'd seen it. He'd tasted it in the way food lost its soul when cooked in fear. He'd felt it in the quiet compliance of people simply trying to survive. Never again. From here on out, leadership wouldn't be filtered through reports or padded numbers. It would be earned and witnessed directly. And the people who held it would be those who showed up when no one was watching. Victor crossed the service hallway toward the back office of Store 5 late on a Thursday afternoon, the sounds of prep work humming steadily behind the kitchen doors. He carried no clipboard, no laptop, just a thick folder under one arm and the weight of a decision he'd spent days debating. The hallway smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and yeast dough rising in the proofer. He paused outside the office, knocked once, then stepped in without waiting for a response. Denise looked up from her desk, adjusting her glasses. A spreadsheet glowed on the monitor behind her. Didn't expect you until next week. I moved a few things around. She leaned back slightly, arms resting on the sides of her chair. Something wrong. He set the folder down on the desk, opened it and slid a single document across to her. I want to formalize the mentorship structure we talked about, and I want you overseeing it. She scanned the paper, brows lifting as she read. You're serious about this? Completely. You're proposing we assign each new hire a designated peer mentor for their first 90 days? Not just assign. Select. Carefully. And I want the mentors compensated. This isn't a side task, it's a role. Denise tapped her finger on the page. This line here, monthly feedback sessions with corporate, are those virtual or in person? In person. I'm restructuring my schedule to make it happen. She studied him for a moment. You're doing a lot more hands-on work lately. I've had my distance. It didn't serve us. Her eyes lingered on the document again. You'll need someone to pilot this before rolling it out. I already have the site in mind. Store 3. He nodded. They've already created the environment. This just gives it structure. She leaned forward, pulled a pen from her desk drawer, and underlined a section. You've got a clause in here about mentor selection being subject to review after the first month. Who's doing the review? You. And Carmen. Together. Denise looked up again. You're giving her that kind of authority? She knows the people better than anyone, and she won't sugarcoat. She set the pen down and closed the folder. This might finally stop the revolving door in our kitchens. That's the idea. He stood, took the folder back, and turned to leave. As he reached the hallway, she called out. Victor. He turned. You never answered my question. Why now? He considered it. Because I used to think culture happened naturally.
Now I know it has to be built. On purpose. Every day. She gave a single nod.
He left the office and headed toward the exit. Outside, the sun had lowered just enough to cast long shadows on the sidewalk. He walked to his car, but didn't get in right away. Instead, he dialed Carmen. She picked up on the second ring. You free early next week? Depends. I want to walk the floor with you. Not just store 3. All of them. Walk the floor. Unannounced visits. No suits. Just observation. There was a pause. You're really not going back to the old way, are you? No. I'm not. He hung up and got behind the wheel. 3 days later, they met outside store 2. Carmen wore a plain hoodie, sleeves pushed up to her elbows, clipboard in hand. Victor dressed down in a gray pullover and dark jeans, no name tag, no introduction. They entered through the front, walked a slow loop through the dining area, then moved to the prep hallway. No one recognized them exactly how Victor wanted it. Carmen pointed toward the back line. That one his station's clean, but he's covering 2 roles. Where's the prep assistant? Victor scanned the schedule on the wall. Slots unfilled 3 days this week. Someone's cutting corners again. They continued through the kitchen, noting the pace, the communication, the posture of the staff. Not just who was working but how. Store after store, the patterns emerged. Some ran smoothly, teams tight and communicative. Others showed signs of fatigue, short staffing, rushed prep, frayed nerves behind forced smiles. At store 6, a dishwasher named Eli approached them during a lull. You two from corporate? Carmen didn't answer. He looked between them. Just wondering. There's been talk about changes. People are nervous. Victor stepped closer. What kind of talk? They think someone's watching now. Quietly. Like checking how people treat each other. Some folks are cleaning up their act. Others are just hiding it better. Carmen crossed her arms. What about you? Eli shrugged. I just keep my head down. But I've noticed who steps up when things go sideways. And who disappears. Victor nodded once. Appreciate the honesty. Eli hesitated. Are the rumors true? About Bridget being fired. They're true, Victor said. Eli exhaled slowly. Then maybe we've still got a shot. They left through the back that time. In the parking lot, Carmen stopped him. You hearing what I'm hearing? Yes. Then we've got a bigger problem. He waited. People think the only reason things are improving is because you're watching now. Not because it's the right thing. He looked out toward the street. Which means we haven't built trust. Just fear in a different direction. Exactly. He turned to her. What would real trust look like? She didn't hesitate. People taking responsibility when no one's looking. Speaking up without checking who's in the room. Managers asking questions instead of giving orders. He nodded. Then we build toward that. She looked at him, arms still crossed. You really think that's possible in a company our size? I don't know. But it's the only thing worth trying. They parted ways in silence. Over the next month, Victor launched the mentorship pilot at Store 3. Maya trained 2 new hires under Carmen's guidance, logging weekly reflections and peer evaluations. For the first time, feedback flowed both directions. Mentors were rated just as much as ments. The results came in faster than expected. Retention improved, training time dropped, and kitchen errors decreased. Victor reviewed the data late into the evenings, cross-referencing numbers with internal notes. But what stood out weren't the metrics. It was the writing. In a weekly entry Maya had written, I used to think I had to make myself smaller to stay out of trouble. Now I'm learning how to take up space the right way. That line stayed with him. Carmen began visiting other stores on her own, not as a supervisor but as a peer observer. She took notes. She offered suggestions. She asked questions no one else thought to ask. Victor watched from a distance. He'd been wrong to think leadership meant control. Didn't. It meant clarity. And the courage to move toward what mattered, even when it was uncomfortable. 2 months after the reveal, he stood in front of a room full of managers, some new, some seasoned, all quiet as he spoke. I'm not here to tell you how to run your stores, he said. I'm here to tell you what I expect of the people who lead them. He paused. I expect you to notice the quiet ones. I expect you to ask more questions than you answer. I expect you to create places where people don't flinch when you walk into the room. He let the silence settle. Because if you don't, I will find out. Not through reports. Not through surveys. I will walk in quietly just like I did before. And I will see it for myself. Then his tone shifted.
And if you're doing it right, if your team trusts you, if your kitchen breathes without fear, I'll see that too. And I'll ask you to teach the others. He stepped down from the podium. Carmen was waiting in the back of the room. He joined her. How'd it land? He asked. She gave a slow nod.
Some of them got it. Some didn't. Then we keep showing them what it looks like. She handed him a folded paper. Maya's applying for the regional training program. He opened it. Read the first line. I want to help create the kind of kitchen I never thought I'd find. He folded the paper again and slid it into his jacket. They didn't need to say anything else. The work was only beginning. But it was real. And this time it would be built to last.